Have you heard about flip teaching? Let's talk about what it is, why you might, and how to do it. Flip teaching addresses two specific aspects of teaching: your direct instruction, aka lecture, and your independent practice, especially the stuff we send home as homework. It also talks about where we do these two elements. Traditional models have lecture in the classroom and independent practice at home, but the flipped model changes where these two things occur. It sends lecture home in the form of a video and moves independent practice into the classroom. This model, largely credited to Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams, is based on the principle that students are the reason that we teach, and therefore what the students need is the most important thing. Their logic was that students don't need as much teacher support to listen to a lecture and take notes as they do to take those concepts from theory to practice. So why should you consider flipping your room? One big advantage is that it helps your busy or frequently absent students keep up. Where these students would normally miss a lecture and have to get the notes from someone else, which is never as good as the real thing, they now watch the lecture at home, and they can set up time to come in and do the independent practice with teacher support, or do it by themselves depending on their skill level. Which leads us to the other advantage. It diversifies instruction and helps all of your students succeed. It gets rid of that spread that you have in a traditional lecture, where you have some students who were ready to move on about 6 minutes ago, and you have other students raising their hand, desperately begging you to slow down because they just didn't get it down yet. Flip teaching lets them pause, it lets them rewind, it puts the speed of the lecture into the hands of the students, and it lets students show you how much support they need when putting those skills into practice in the classroom. This increases student-teacher interaction. Yes, you've taken out the face-to-face of lecture by putting it on a video and sending it home, but you've then opened up all this class time where you get to diversify the support levels and their activities and work with the students in a more one-on-one small group manner than you would normally have time for. It changes classroom management. You will not have lectures interrupted by the student at the back of the room making obnoxious noises. You will not have students distracted by said classmate, because you're going to make these lecture videos away from students. They're done on plan and prep time, not in the classroom with the student. You won't have to stop a lecture to deal with this behavior. You could keep playing the lecture and deal with it quietly on the side if you chose to play it in class. It just changes the ball game that you're playing. It helps your parents help their students. We have those parents who do genuinely want to help their students with their homework, but they don't understand the concept any more than their student does. This gives them access to your lesson, so they're helping your student understand the exact concept that you wanted them to understand, the way you wanted them to understand it, instead of Googling it or relying off of what they remember. And it makes subplans simpler. You could prep a flipped video for a lesson and have the sub play that, instead of having to write out explicit subplans that make the sub play the "am I interpreting this right" game. So, all of these pros. There are some cons. Most of them I do not consider an issue, and here's why. Criticism number one: kids have too much screen time. This is undeniable. They spend a lot of time in front of computers and cell phones and game consoles. They're on YouTube watching how to play video game videos, so on and so forth. They already have a lot of screen time. And this is why it's a non-issue for me. They were already doing it. That was not going to change no matter how you did your lecture. The difference is that now you're getting them to maybe take 10-15 minutes of that 6 hours a night they'd spend doing that thing on an educational screen time. Another criticism says kids already have too much homework. and that homework hasn't been scientifically proven to be of value, blah, 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 blah. We know that we don't have enough time to do everything in class the way students need it. So something has to shift out of the classroom and to the home space. Sending home a lecture video that's ideally no longer than 10 minutes long is going to dramatically reduce their homework load, even if all 8 of their classes were to assign a flipped video. That would be 80 minutes of video a night, as opposed to your 30 to 60 minutes of practice a student might spend on an actual assignment. So it does reduce your homework load instead of adding to it. Technology access. This one is a fair criticism because not all students have access to the technology to watch these videos from home. However, there are solutions and strategies you can come up with if you need to mediate this particular difficulty. Commercials before videos. If you put your videos through YouTube or most other streaming platforms, they're going to stick an ad in front of it. And students shouldn't have to see those ads and be given advertising and propaganda before they do their homework. Probably true. But like I mentioned before, they're already on YouTube watching these videos. They already know about the skip ad button, and they know how to use it. They can skip the ad, they don't have to watch it, they still get their homework done, and they were already seeing them anyway. Last one is the downsides of didactic teaching. A lecture is a lecture, and no matter what name you call it by, it's still not the most ideal form for instruction. This is true. However, there are times that direct instruction is necessary, and it's better, in my opinion, to shift that instruction at home where it's minimized and out of the class time so that you can use those best practices, ideal techniques in the classroom with the breathing room and the time that you need. All that considered, flipping might not be for you if you're just doing it because it's the fad. It's the popular thing to do right now, and it's cool, and we're all supposed to put technology in our classrooms. Great. Don't do it if it's just the cool thing to do, because that's never the best idea. Do not flip if you think it's going to make your job easier. It does not make teaching easier. It just changes how you're teaching. Don't flip if you think this is going to magically turn your students into independent learners. They still need all that explicit instruction on how to be a good learner. And flipping if you're uncomfortable with technology may not be the ideal method for you. That being said, there's lots of user-friendly technology out there to flip with that you can learn on the go. It's just all where your comfort zone is. If you're still interested in flipping your classroom, getting started is as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, you plan your lesson just like you normally would. Then, you find or make a video that teaches the concept you just planned out. And you assign it as homework. The kids go home, they watch the video, they take notes, and then you come back and get to change up what happens in class. In a traditional classroom, a 45-minute class might be broken down with a 5-minute warm-up, get their bell ringer and get them in the game. Then you review their homework because that's going to help them understand it best. You go over it, you answer questions, you make corrections, takes up about 15 minutes. And then you have time for your new content lecture. So you spend 20 minutes giving them instruction on this new concept, which only leaves you about 5 minutes for guided or independent practice. On the other hand, in the flipped classroom, you'd begin with the warm-up because that bell ringer is good for focusing, and you would still have a review from that lesson. It's a 10-minute question and answer session to help clear up any misconceptions. But that leaves you 30 whole minutes for guided and independent practice that you can differentiate and scaffold as your students require. Sound like your cup of tea? Then I think you're ready to flip.